And now I would like to introduce Professor Dr. Margret Ruep, a former Deputy Minister in Baden-Württemberg in Germany, and Professor Malak Zaalouk, Director of the Graduate School of Education, Middle East Institute of Higher Education, for this dialogue session. Please welcome them on stage. Please write down all the questions you need from this dialogue discussion, and we will discuss them further on. Okay, so you're ready for the questions?
We are, but can we just say hello? And
please do.
We're very pleased to be here.
Please.
It's a great honor to be invited to this great idea of innovation in education. Thank you.
You're most welcome, Dr. Malak. Dr. Malak, what is your idea of education, please?
I guess you just said it all in your introduction.
We would like to listen from you more.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sure you have a lot to say.
Yeah, well, let me first start by saying, if we actually look at some of the definitions of what educate means, it actually means bringing out the power of human beings. We are all infinitely empowered human beings. So education is not about doing anything more or less than allowing the full potential of human beings to grow into the good citizens they need to be, and into ultimately the societies we dream of, because the whole idea of education is such an ancient one, from the most ancient philosophers who were always trying to create ideal societies and who were always trying to create harmonious and ideal societies. And how would they do that? They would first agree on what were the ultimate values that they upheld for an ideal society, and then went on to create the kind of education that would allow citizens to grow to their full potential to in fact fulfill the ideals of that particular society. And you'd be surprised. A lot of what we call innovation today existed from far away. The whole idea of the potential of the human being is yes, brains and intellect. It's also emotions and affect and values. It's morality. It's being wide awake and to be able to make the correct moral decisions in life. This is so critical in good education. It's also so critical to have all the competencies that will allow us to communicate, to accept diversity, to be able to be in collaboration with others. We can never be free, we can never be well-learned unless we learn to live with others, unless we learn to accept and respect others. So in a broad sense, this is what education is about. So it's learning, of course, to be, so our identities, learning to do, our skills, learning to live together, and of course, learning to learn, which is the information.
Before I go to a question to Dr. Margret, I would ask you, Dr. Malak, to say just a caption about the picture which is behind you. How do you describe this picture with a caption? 2 words or just 1 sentence if you need.
Every human being has a treasure within, and all we have to do is bring it out.
Okay, sounds great to me. Okay, Dr. Margret, how is the relationship between education and innovation?
Sabah al-Khair first. I was very impressed. I want to say something before.
Sure.
I was very impressed what I have heard just now, because it's exactly what I'm convinced of. It's our, I think, very German idea of the word, if you know, some of you knows it, or know it, Bildung. And when I have this German word Bildung in my mind, it's very emotional. Maybe it's emotional like if you say Alhamdulillah, it's emotional. I don't know if this is right. And of course, education is so important that it's part of my life to work for this. And if you think about education and innovation, I think all the time we thought about how to innovate, how to change, how to make it better, because the reality never is perfect. And things happen all the time. And so we have to think about, when it's not perfect, how can we improve it? And to improve means to change, and to change means to innovate. But we never know if innovation is better than what we have. This makes us a little bit thinking about, should we do it? And we have a German philosopher, Peter Sloterdijk. He has written, he has published a book with the title, You Have to Change Your Life. And he means that if you are educated, if you are in this process of educating, you have to change. Because if you learn and you know, then you change your mind in a way that you have to change something. A very simple example, if you know that plastics are damaging our oceans, you have to change. You have to say, oh no, I don't use any plastics, but we do. So we are not perfect, but we know, and we should learn out of this. And of course, it's very important. On the other side, we know out of research results that there are different types of innovators. And only 1.5% of people in a social group are liking or loving to innovate, to change something. Only 1.5%. And then there are about 13% who are going with the innovators when they see, it could be successful. But if it's not successful, they don't like to go.
They don't follow.
Yes. And then 34% early adopters and major adopters, they are going when they see there are some successful results. And 16% are laggards. They never want to change anything. And they always have arguments why we shouldn't change anything. And Peter Sloterdijk says education is very, very conservative. Because when we, for example, look into curricula, it's the content or the knowledge of the past. And if you think about innovation, you have to anticipate what could be and what is necessary regarding to what we see actually. And this is a different, a different area for human beings. And this is why we are here, I think.
Okay, the same question, I would address it to you. When you see this picture, how would you describe it in a caption?
I see my family. My father-in-law was a painter, and he was painting with my son when he was like this. And now I have 2 grandsons, and they are doing the same. And it's a symbol of education, I think. It's a symbol. There is a child, and this child is doing something holistic. Creative imagination. He sees, he looks to the world, he's focused, what we call in the creativity research, autotelisches Selbst. I don't know. It's a special, very focused with yourself and what you're doing. And this is what we see, and this is the best we can think about education.
The future is in our kids, actually.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I have a question for Dr. Malak and Dr. Margret. Could you explain the innovations in your education systems, please, in the last 10 years, whether in Egypt or in Germany, please?
Okay. Let me say the paradigm shift globally. That is very important to grapple with, because I think, Margret, you touched on a very important tension between education and innovation. Because it's true, to educate is to transfer what we knew from the past and make sure that everyone knows what we actually came up with and the information and knowledge. But the true paradigm shift is from education to learning. Because learning happens all the time, everywhere. It happens every minute of the day in formal settings, non-formal settings, informal settings. It's not necessarily happening all the time within our formal settings where we have to enforce a particular curriculum. In my own experience in Egypt, I have 3 things I want to talk about, and then I'll hear what you have to say from Germany, of course, and Europe, obviously. From Egypt, I think one of the most powerful, innovative pedagogies that I have been engaged in is community schools, which has actually helped empower the most disadvantaged children in the hardest to reach parts of Egypt, in Upper Egypt, and to empower them to self-learn and to learn. Not only be educated, but to learn and to become lifelong learners, to continue to do that. My dream is, of course, to see community colleges as well. Not only at the school level, is to see community colleges democratize this paradigm of people being able to learn, self-learn. Another very innovative initiative that has been so important in my own career here in Egypt has been to autonomize teachers, create teachers who are autonomous, reflective researchers. It is so important that we do not deal with our teachers as civil servants or workers who are there to do what we tell them to do in the classroom. It is so important that we empower our teachers, that we allow them to become intellectually engaged, research, and come up with their own teaching philosophies. So for a number of years, I have been engaged in actually empowering teachers to be reflective researchers. And the third one is yet to come, and I'm hoping that I can tap on many, many experts here, is the whole idea of linking formal, non-formal, and informal learning in creating learning cities. How can we innovatively, with the technology we have today, with the ideas we have today, decentralize our learning to the city level, but create communities of learners within a single city where everyone, every space, every moment is an opportunity for opening the doors of learning. Part of why people resist innovation is because they do not enjoy learning. So there's a blockage. We need to change this culture, and one of the best ways to do that is to coordinate our efforts and create opportunities for the people who could afford to go to formal settings, but also for those who could not afford. And those who were too old to join, give them another opportunity. Allow for spaces for adult learners, allow for spaces for people to learn constantly. We constantly have so much waiting to do in our societies. We wait in bus stops, we wait in traffic, we wait for medical doctors, hours, etc. So the waiting time is huge. Use these moments to invite people to learn. Use the spaces we have to invite people to learn. If we can create this environment, we would like to start with Cairo City. Our very own old Cairo that is here, and to start to create a network of people who would want to transform every opportunity and space to a learning one in an enjoyable fashion, intertwined with culture, intertwined with technology, intertwined with innovation, but open for everyone. That's the future. It's one of your goals for 2030 is really to have resilient cities. It's goal number 11, and that's exactly what we would like to do.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Margret?
Yes, in Germany, we had a big shock in 2000 because we were participants in global research studies. And before we had the identity that we had a very, very good education system. And suddenly we had to realize that this is not true, that there were some big problems. Our students were not that good as we thought, and so we had, of course, to think about this. At that time, when I saw the newspaper in the morning, I had a meeting in the evening with parents in Tübingen. All the parents of the schools were invited for a special issue, and of course, the issue I had prepared was not important at all. The question was, because I was responsible at that time for the whole department of Tübingen, the parents asked me very upset, now, you are responsible, what are you doing now? What will you do? There are a lot of mistakes. And I said, I cannot say this at this moment. We have to think about this. We have to see exactly what are the results, and then we have to think about what we can do. And then the next years, I think we did a lot. And when we look now to the last research studies, we have improved something, but we are not perfect. We did a lot for teacher trainings programs. This is very important. And we did a lot to change the methods of teaching, especially from only instruction to more and more activating methods. This is active learning, not only sitting and listening and then learning for the test and writing the test and then forget everything. It's to be active. And a teacher has to be very active to prepare a lesson, wherever, at home or in the school or in the university, and to think about a learning environment that activates the students. This is very important. There is a big study from John Hattie, Visible Learning, and he is the one who tells us what should happen at school and universities. Teachers who are very good in classroom management and who are very good in activating students. And this is, I think, what we did or tried to do. It's not easy because it's easier to do it like an instructor with a book, and it's very difficult to think about how to activate students. And the next what we did was to focus collaborative working, teamwork. And the last study shows us that our students now are really on a very high level in teamwork. And this is also very important. And the last thing is that we implemented management systems, quality management systems. And this is also an innovation people don't really like. Because if you implement a quality management system, you have to reflect about what is quality and how can we do it. We have a vision, but how do we do it? How do we do the first step? And how it is in the concrete situation. This is a big challenge. I have experiences at school with this, in an education department, in a ministry, and in a university. So I know it's not easy, but I think just do it, always. There is no other way.
Okay. I have a last question for both of you. What do you think is needed for education during the next years according to the goal of sustainable development? Dr. Malak?
Okay, I think to activate again what we both have been talking about, it's so important to instill moral and values education. That's so important in ethics. Because we are all ultimately custodians of the one planet we have. There aren't too many of those. So we only have one planet. We all have to be aware and to be cooperative in how we sustain and are able to look after this planet. So values, education, and ethics is so critical. Having systems of learning, and why I keep saying the paradigm needs to shift from educating, because educating is sort of imposed by the educator, whereas learning is when the learner takes responsibility for their own learning. And that's what we need to really be very aware of. We need to have student-centered learning in every single possible context. We need to allow our students at every level to become inquirers, explorers, researchers. And to do that, we need to have educators and teachers who are also that way. You cannot have a child or an adolescent or an adult who becomes an explorer, a risk taker, a researcher, and someone who wants to work collaboratively with others to make this world a better one, unless you have models of your educators who are doing that. So we need to pay very big attention, especially when we're getting those new initiatives, new universities, new colleges. We need to be so conscious of the educators in those institutions. They are the models. They are the ones who will set the pace for the future generations. So they need to be empowered, not only trained, but empowered. They need to be thinking through what is the impact of what they do on their students. What is the impact of how they behave in their classrooms on the community of learners for whom they are responsible. So it's a huge responsibility. Being an educator is a huge responsibility. It's an act of empowerment, of love, and of commitment. So therefore, it's something we have to pay very big attention to in our future steps.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Malak. Dr. Margret?
I agree totally. It's amazing for me, and this is one of the keys of the future, to meet people in other countries far away, and suddenly I met you some days ago, and after 30 minutes I had the feeling, click. It's the same ideas in our mind, and this is in other countries I know the same, and I see everywhere there are people who think in the same direction. And of course, we are in a global village regarding to the problems or challenges we have. And in my eyes, sustainability is the most important goal in the world, global goal. And we need people who are able to see that these are the challenges and to create, to develop ideas how to solve it. This is what we should have. And one of the keys is to connect ourselves with all the others, because it's much easier if you cooperate with people than if you are alone. And one of the concept I learned about and I used is the learning organization. Since I know this, I cannot do in another way than to use it. It's a concept from Peter Zenshi. There are two principles. It's dialogue. This means to understand one another, to have not a yes-but culture, but a culture of thinking together in a creative way. Mm-hmm. And the second principle is participation. Everybody is asked, not only the boss. And we can learn a lot of the Japanese culture of Kaizen. perhaps you know this, it's a method of the little steps, not only the big vision, the little steps. And then we have 5 disciplines in this learning organization. It's first the individual mastery, personal mastery. Of course, everybody has to learn as an individual. Then teamwork, the second. Then a common vision, a shared vision, a vision which is alive and not behind us, or not that we are not aware of this. Then mental models. We have cultural mental models from our childhood, and it's like a routine. We don't think about this, and we should always reflect, is this right, what we are thinking? Maybe it's wrong, and so it should be discussed or in a dialogue talked about this. And the 5th one is systemic thinking. We have to know and we have to be aware that we are connected all over the world, and that we only have benefit, all of us, when we are aware of learning together, thinking together, learning together. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.